Get ready to embrace debate. First Take starts now.
Coming up on the First Take podcast, will the Patriots' Monday night nightmare impact them Sunday against the Broncos? Plus, is it time for the Redskins to make some major staff changes? And is Kobe Bryant ready to return to the game? We talk about it, all that and more, coming up on the First Take podcast, which starts right now. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Take. I'm Carrie Champion. That is Skip Bayless, nice suit, and Stephen A Smith.
Nice suit.
Listen, yeah, best dressed
What's going on?
trio in TV. You look great.
Thank you so much. You don't look too bad yourself.
I try to do okay.
Would you believe
What's going on?
last night I actually had dinner with that man?
I know,
just
you
the
guys
two of
broke
us.
bread.
Usually I'm just sick and tired of him after the show and I can't take him anymore.
The second or third time in 16 years.
Really?
Yeah,
Are you kidding?
Did it.
Yeah, that's about it.
That's funny. You've taken me to dinner like 3 times.
You know how many
you gotta catch up with this guy.
You know how many sports debates we had in 2 hours?
How many?
Zero.
Just caught up on family.
Yes.
Okay.
Something like that.
Something like that. All right, what's on the playlist today? We're bonding. Santana Moss says RG3 needs to be held accountable. And Kobe Watch begins. He's back at practice and he feels better than expected. But first, the NFL's VP of officiating, Dean Blandino, said the officials on Monday Night Football made a tight but right call on that final play of Carolina's 24-20 win over the Patriots. Let's listen.
They have to make this call. They used proper mechanics. They got together after the play. They determined that in their judgment that the contact occurred simultaneous with the ball being intercepted, and that's what the officials did. When we look at tight judgment calls like this, and we feel that the officials followed proper mechanics, we do not downgrade the officials for this type of situation.
All right, we've heard a few, and this is the latest. VP of officiating. You buying that explanation, Mr. Bayless? Make sure you know what he is.
Carrie, Stephen A., there is no way I am buying that explanation.
Yeah.
But I must say that Dean Blandino actually did the best he could to defend his officiating crew by saying they did the best they could to make that call at full speed, as in snap judgment, obviously without benefit of replay, which I believe should have been used on all calls, especially that one that would occur in the last minute of a game and decide a game. So Dean Blandino is saying that their snap judgment was at full speed that the restriction of Gronkowski by Kuechly occurred simultaneously with the ball touching the defensive back's hands, who then intercepted the football. But let me point out and stop down for just a moment. Our sports science segment running right now on Sports Center clearly demonstrates that the referee's snap judgment was wrong. Could we roll it, please?
Rob Gronkowski begins to decelerate nearly a full second before the ball arrives. And Luke Kuechly makes contact with Gronk a third of a second later. That means the contact in dispute happened 2/3 of a second before the ball was intercepted.
So, clearly, the referees were wrong, and the ball was not uncatchable because clearly Gronkowski has no chance, because he is being restricted, of coming back and fighting for the football. Would he have caught it? I have no idea. But he didn't get the chance to come back and fight for it. So Blandino stopped short of saying, hey, they were absolutely right to pick up the flag that was thrown by the back judge, because I think that Dean Blandino knows in his heart of hearts, after watching the replays the way the rest of us did, that the referees got it wrong to pick up that flag.
Powerful evidence.
Powerful evidence.
It was.
Let me tell you something.
It was.
Powerful evidence.
We both,
You're welcome.
if you recall, we both acknowledged that it was a blown call. We both acknowledged that definitely the Carolina Panthers should have been penalized. Whether it was pass interference that would have put the ball on the 1-yard line, or a holding penalty that would have put it on the 13-yard line. The point that I'm making, and where we part ways, is that I accept the fact that this is a decision that happened, because I am not a Patriot lover. I am not somebody who ordained and anointed them as the future Super Bowl champions of the world.
So you
I
are
am
not
somebody who is
objective here.
who is in love with Tom Brady. No. The objectiveness in question would be yours, because you are the guy that picked the Patriots. You are the guy that wants them to sit there and win another Super Bowl championship. You are the guy that loves yourself some Tom Brady. You are the guy that's been craving and waiting for Tom Brady.
Are you saying sports science is not objective?
No. I'm saying to you is they can say what they want. It doesn't matter to
They
me.
can show you what you want, right?
What I'm telling you, their subject matter is different from ours, because I don't recall neither you nor I disagreeing with what they came up with. Even before this stuff was on SportsCenter this morning and last night, we had drew the conclusion yesterday that the Patriots should have been afforded one more play. So we were not in disagreement. It's just that I accept the fact that in a game of football, mistakes happen, these things happen. And that's life. You want to spend an extra day going off about the Patriots because they were robbed. You know,
Well, they were robbed.
Just like we had to spend 3 days.
Everybody
just
knows
like we
they
had to
were
spend
robbed.
3 days when they kicked the field goal against Baltimore last year and it went through the upright. And you know it was wide right. You get a bit emotional. See, the issue here is you getting a bit emotional over the Patriots. I understand. Because now we're talking about playoff games that's going to be played on the road, a possible AFC Championship game in the Mile High City, as opposed to Foxborough. Your Super Bowl prediction is in jeopardy.
Will you admit it was a blown call?
I did.
Yes.
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Tell me. Are you not listening? Did I not say 3 times before you just asked me that question that it was a blown call? I most certainly did say it was a blown call. I agree with you. The difference is, I understand these things happen. It happens. It's okay.
Kerry, what was the question that we were debating here?
No. I'm saying to you is you want to debate it because you want to continue to bring attention to the fact that your boys got robbed, because you know and I know they're in even more trouble of your prediction that I'm winning the Super Bowl being in jeopardy.
Is that what
That's what this is
I
about.
simply want to answer Kerry's question.
Are you buying the
that the
explanation?
NFL's spin doctor is spinning as fast as he can spin.
Okay.
Okay? And I like the way he tried to spin it.
Did he do a good job of spinning?
He spun as well as he could spin,
did.
but he knows his officiating crew was wrong.
They messed up.
Let me quote one other ex-referee
messed up.
who worked as a director of officials in the league office for a while. His name is Jim Diopoulos. He's quoted in today's USA Today.
Yes.
And he says that they were wrong to pick up the flag because he doesn't like mechanics being used. And again, Blandino is saying the proper mechanics were to everybody come together and confer about it.
Right.
Jim Diopoulos is saying, no, don't do that, because he teaches his young referees that your original gut instinct is almost always right. Who had the gut instinct on that play? The guy looking right down the barrel of the play, the back judge named Terrence Miles, could see the ball, he could see the restriction, he could see the timing of it. What did he do? Immediately he grabbed his flag without hesitation.
And threw it.
And so Diopoulos is saying, you know what? He should have stood his ground against a side judge and an umpire who come running in. You don't think they had their eyes on different things?
I totally agree with you,
Okay.
but Skip, in the interest of fairness, you have to remember that you, and like me, you're a proponent of instant replay.
Very much so.
Okay? And so why? Because we understand that the officials are not infallible, that they are not flawless, that they make mistakes. Now, I understand your point about their gut instinct and following the gut instinct, but in the technological age that we're living in, where instant replay has now become a part of the game, even though it wasn't a part of it on that particular play because it wasn't reviewable, the reality is that when you have that going on, it brings into question, you know, their calls, because we understand more than ever before they're not infallible, they're not flawless. So if you have that, you can't expect as human beings that you're not going to look for help, that you're not going to look for people to substantiate
I don't
the
think
decision
he
that you
looked
made.
for it. I think he got it from both sides.
Wait a minute. They didn't just come running in.
Yeah, they did.
I saw him looking at them too, like looking for some assistance. I didn't see him. I saw him definitively throw the flag, but at the same time, he wasn't averse to sitting there and taking their counsel and listening to them and hearing what they saw as well. And my point to you is, so evidently, even though you threw the flag and your instinct was to do that because that's how you felt, there may have been something there that said to you, I could be wrong. And so if that's the case, because of the fact that you are questioning whether or not you knew this or not, the point that I'm trying to make to you is that particular referee, Diopoulos, that you alluded to, saying follow your gut instinct because it's almost always right. That's significantly more difficult to do in this day and age as opposed to years past, because now that you have instant replay hovering over you again, even though it didn't apply to that particular play, because it's of its mere existence, you're going to have officials questioning themselves from time to time.
Can we agree that if this crew had taken 3 minutes, and again, this is not in the rules, but if they had taken 3 minutes to run over and look at a monitor and study what actually happened, they would have kept the flag on the ground.
Totally agree.
They would have given the Patriots the ball, 1st and goal at the 1, one more untimed play, win or lose.
He said that, though.
Yeah,
but the other part that I think you're shortchanging the Patriots, this is the kind of stuff that's going to tick them off. And I think that, expect them to perform on an elite level for the most part the rest of the way. I mean, I'm just saying, I think this is the kind of stuff that's going to get them going even more so.
Okay,
and again,
that's
some of their bodies
two games that I think they got robbed in, because in overtime against the Jets, the ref threw the flag on the quote-unquote pushing penalty, an obscure penalty. Okay, that one.
That was the rule.
Okay, but that one you can't do instant replay for, because that's one man's opinion of whether that was pushing.
Yeah, but the guy came behind the blocker, and you're not allowed to do that.
A little bit.
Listen, we sort of hollered, just like you alluded to SportsCenter pointed to that on several occasions in the aftermath of that New England loss to the Jets. And it showed the lineman going behind another lineman and piling on. You can't, bull rush. You can't do that.
Well, you also agree with me in conclusion that that call just might have put the New England Patriots at Mile High, or whatever they call it now, in Denver for the AFC Championship game.
You're forgetting. Your amnesia has kicked in. You forgot that I predicted the Denver Broncos were going to the Super Bowl because the AFC Championship game would be at Mile High.
No, I have not forgotten that.
I didn't say I didn't get
now
there.
You are having to admit publicly you have lost all objectivity on this question.
No, not at all. What I'm saying to you is I always expected the New England Patriots to end up in the Mile High City for the AFC Championship game. I didn't say how they get there. Who cares?
Did you say,
as long as you're there.
Did you say by hook or by crook? Because it's by crook.
I always mean by hook or by crook.
Okay.
You understand? That's always. I didn't know that I had to sit there and say such a thing.
I rest my case. Thank you.
Great evidence.
Thank
very
you
powerful.
much.
I appreciate
that.
Oh, you're welcome.
On side today. Like this.
Don't roll your eyes. Monday Night Football wasn't the only game that ended with controversy. In the Redskins' 24-16 loss to the Eagles, RG3 had an issue with the coaching staff and his teammates. Let's listen.
You got to give credit where credit's due to Philly. They did a good job scheming us up. Obviously we were able to run the ball effectively, but in the passing game they kind of had us. They kind of knew it was coming before it was coming, and like I said, that is disheartening.
As a leader, you understand that if you're involved in a situation, whether you're the receiver, the quarterback, the guys making the tackle, whoever, regardless of the outcome, good or bad, you have to at some point stand up and say, me or I. If we're going to win games, we need to win games with our guy saying at the end of the day, I didn't make a play. Regardless if it wasn't him. I'm not sitting here to tell you why it didn't happen or who didn't make the play for me to make a play. If I'm the guy that's at the end of the day have the ball in my hand and we sitting there and the game is over because of me, I didn't do enough to make the play. I didn't do enough to help us win.
Santana Moss demanding accountability. We also had Fred Smoot on the show, and he was clear that there clearly is a problem in the locker room. Stephen A., with all that in mind, what do you think that the Redskins owner should do with the team?
I think he has to replace the coach and his son, the offensive coordinator, not because they're awful or anything like that. It's clear that they don't have control of this locker room. They don't have control of RG3. RG3 doesn't respect them to the level that he should. And as a result, you have to deal accordingly because you ain't getting rid of RG3, not anytime soon. Santana Moss's words were right on the money.
Yep.
It is the ultimate indictment against RG3 because he's basically calling RG3 out by saying you're pointing the finger at others, not yourself. And that's exactly what RG3 did when he said what he said. And it is not the first time. It is not the second time. It is not even the third time he has appeared on opposite pages of Mike Shanahan in terms of how you're supposed to exercise the proper professional decorum towards your head coach. Now, does that mean that RG3 is a bad guy? No. Does it mean he's somebody that can't be trusted or can't lead down the line in the future? No. But it does highlight the problem. And the problem is RG3 got caught up in RG3.
Yep.
And so did the Redskins and Redskins Nation. And as a result, they have all come tumbling and crashing down collectively. But RG3 primarily precipitated this, and Shanahan doesn't seem to have his hands on the wheel, and he doesn't seem to be able to control things. This was the ultimate indictment. When Santana Moss comes out and says what he said, you do not hear receivers, particularly classy guys. I mean, Santana Moss doesn't have a problem or anything like that. He's a relatively classy dude. He doesn't say that. He has spoken up on behalf of RG3 in the past, okay? He has spoken up in support of RG3 in the past. You don't hear these words. These are very foreign words coming out of Santana Moss's mouth. I'm waiting to hear from Pierre Garçon next or somebody else. Alfred Morris is running the football, averaging better than 4 yards a carry, better than 5 yards a carry, even though he's averaging better than 4 yards a carry in the last game. Alfred Morris is doing his thing. RG3 is saying they saw what was coming, you know, and that's really unfortunate. Where else are we supposed to look? It may not have been intentional, but I don't believe that. I have come to the conclusion that RG3 is a highly intelligent young man. He knows what he's doing. That's part of the reason he's arrogant, because he knows that his intellect is far above a lot of people his age.
Yep.
He's been there. He's disciplined. He understands what it takes. He knows what he's doing. It's not an accident. And so for me, the fact that it went this way just tells me, and to answer the question directly, if I'm Daniel Snyder, I do two things. I clean house coaching staff-wise, and I get some veterans in that locker room that would handle this matter long before it got to us, because clearly the veterans that they have inside that locker room, at least at some juncture, Skip, were not strong enough to nip a lot of this stuff in the bud. I'm surprised a person I have profound respect for in terms of his professional career, London Fletcher, didn't kind of see the problems that would come down the road and put a stop to it before this happened. Clearly he needs help in that locker room, and the only person that can give it to him is Daniel Snyder, because he's the only one that has the power to do that. The Redskins stink right now. They didn't get it done. The season is at 3-7. It's beyond disappointing. They didn't meet up in expectations. They got the nation's capital crying about something other than Obamacare right now. I mean, it's bad, okay? And they got to do something about it, period.
Bottom line, the bridge is burned to the ground between the coach and the quarterback. Unfixable. Somebody's got to go, and you know who's going to go. The coach is going to go, not the quarterback. I will, however, point out to you that just last summer, we heard a Donald Driver echo the sentiments of a Greg Jennings about Aaron Rodgers and say that he needs to be more accountable, that he points too many fingers and doesn't take enough responsibility when he messes up. Remember, this is just last summer.
Yep.
Okay? Aaron Rodgers obviously has won a Super Bowl.
That's right.
It feels like in Washington, D.C., that RG3 has won a Super Bowl, when in fact he did win Rookie of the Year last year. He was well on his way to winning his first ever playoff game against the Seattle Seahawks when he got hurt. So he has won nothing so far except one division crown. I'm with you. I believe that RG3 through the offseason got lost in as intense an idolatry as I've ever felt. And it's in the nation's capital for those Redskins. No city worships its pro football team any more than Washington worships those Redskins, because it's really all they've had there. I know it's been Bullets, Wizards, sort of, you know, but they haven't given them much. It's Redskins or bust. And they thought they had the savior last year, and he lost himself. I can't defend him anymore, because I told you Monday, I was seeing signs, just watching the game on TV, the team has turned on RG3. They wouldn't help him up anymore. Fred Smoot pointed out his headgear got knocked off at one point, and teammates are just looking at it like, well, you pick it up, because they're sick and tired of him being not accountable for all of his screw-ups, which have been many this year, and it led to the last play of the game when that was just pathetic. He even underthrew an attempted overthrow. You know, he tried to throw it out of bounds and threw it right in the middle of the end zone.
What stood out in my mind, and I usually don't pay attention to these kind of things the way that you do, but I did Sunday. When he threw that last pass, which was pathetic, it was no excuse for it. It was third down. It wasn't fourth down. How could you throw that pass? You still had another down to go. An official helped him up.
Okay.
I mean, the teammates, I'm looking for all of them. I'm like, where are they? You know, they just left them laying there. You know, somebody came over near the tail end of it. But you couldn't find anybody that was, you know, you can sense the level of disgust. And covering professional sports the way that I have over the years, I pay attention to these kind of things. When you have teammates that are willing to speak up and out about you or something you've said, usually fatigue has set in because they've grown tired.
That's correct.
They've grown tired of your act. They've grown tired of you, which means that whatever it is that they're feeling about RG3 is something that has been brewing. If it has been brewing, that means it has been continuous. And if it has been continuous, that means it's something that should have been addressed and wasn't. And finally, people stood up and they said, enough's enough. But I will say this to you. I almost don't blame RG3 in this sense. He wasn't the only one that got caught up in RG3. The Redskins and Redskins Nation got caught up in RG3. It was almost as if you had dudes walking around the nation's capital acting like, we don't have anything to worry about because we got the man. So we don't have to worry about our defense. We don't have to worry about special teams. We don't have to, the only person that seems as if they came into this season not thinking about any of that and literally focused on the job I have to do is Alfred Morris. Because he is the only reliable piece that the Washington Redskins have had. Everybody else, at some point in time or another, you have found yourself asking, maybe Pierre Garçon to a lesser degree than Alfred Morris, but outside of those two, everybody else you found yourself asking, where are they? What's up? What's going on with them? So that's where they are, and this looks bad right now. I'm telling you that.
Last point. Early in their time together in Dallas, I watched Jimmy Johnson and Troy Aikman clash repeatedly. Do not invite them. Jimmy was able to fire his coordinator and hire a Norv Turner who became like a big brother to Troy and turned his career around as a buffer between Jimmy and Troy, who then later bonded. The problem here is the offensive coordinator is the coach's son.
That's right.
You got to get you can't do it. It's not going to work, and you know what's going to happen.
I've always believed that shouldn't be allowed. That level of nepotism. I've never liked that
because there's no buffer.
That's right.
No, you can't. There's no ally for RG3. He can't trust the coach or the coordinator.
He can't. He can't. You're going to trust the offensive coordinator when your daddy's the head coach. I mean, the daddy and the son are going to be thick as thieves. As well they should be, by the way. That's his son.
I know. He goes with his dad. It's a humbling sport, ladies and gentlemen. According to media reports, the woman who filed a complaint against Florida State quarterback Jameis Winston nearly a year ago later told Tallahassee police she decided not to pursue charges. That, according to an email sent by the city manager to city commissioners and obtained by a local paper, which was the Tallahassee Democrat. However, police said the case was reopened and referred to the state attorney because they now have new information. That information is unknown, but we must reiterate that Winston has not been interviewed by police, nor has he been charged with anything. Joining us now to provide some insight on this entire situation is ESPN college reporter Mark Schlabach. Can you give us the latest on this case?
Well, what we know is that, like you said, that the case went from open inactive to open active last week after Tallahassee police reviewed the case file after a couple of media outlets filed an open records request for information concerning the case. And apparently the only way that case can go back to open active is that if there is new evidence or new leads that emerge in the case. The case sits with Willie Meggs, the state attorney for the Second Judicial Circuit in Tallahassee. I talked to him yesterday and asked if he had spoken to the victim in the case, and he said they were working on it, and ultimately it's going to be up to his office to determine whether or not there is sufficient evidence to file criminal charges against Jameis Winston. And I think it's important to say, guys, that even if the victim does not wish to pursue charges, under Florida law, Meggs' office can still go forward with charges.
Hey, Mark, appreciate you being on the show. Good seeing you this weekend in Atlanta, by the way. Let me ask you this question. Why haven't the authorities spoken to Jameis Winston?
Because Stephen, Jameis Winston's attorney, Tim Jansen, has advised him not to talk to authorities. And he is invoking his right not to speak to authorities and not to self-incriminate. And at this point, as far as I know, he has yet to speak to Tallahassee police or the state attorney's office and has not submitted a written statement of any sort.
So they can't compel him to talk to them, or whether it be via written statement or being interviewed directly, they can't compel him. The authorities cannot compel Jameis Winston to talk to them, even with his lawyer in attendance?
No, not under Florida law. They can't compel him to talk. Once he's charged, I assume, if he's charged, I would assume he'd speak to police. But to this point, over the last 11 months of this investigation, he has not spoken to authorities.
Hey, Mark, Skip Bayless here. I need your help on a fairness question. I must admit that now that I hear there was allegedly a new piece of evidence that came to light last week that helped to reopen this case, I've now gone from thinking that Jameis was barely or marginally involved in this to thinking he was far more involved than we first were led to believe. Is that fair of me to conclude now?
I don't know, Skip. I don't know all the answers. Jansen, his attorney, has been very quiet over the last few days. Willie Meggs, the state attorney, has not been very forthcoming with details surrounding this case. If you read between the lines in the Tallahassee Democrat paper, the interim police chief was quoted as saying only 2 people know what happened that night. I've been told that the description, if you go back to the original police report from December 7th, the alleged victim described her alleged assailant as between 5'9" and 5'11". Well, Jameis Winston's 6'4", and I'm told that don't buy into that too much. That's not a big deal. And also, I was told last Friday that the victim could not identify Jameis Winston as a suspect until a month after the fact. So there's still a lot of unknown answers and details surrounding this case.
So with that being said, I mean, obviously in the court of law, it just seems like this could be ongoing, but at the same time, Jameis Winston is going to still be able to compete or whatever. What kind of an impact do you anticipate this will have on him moving forward in the court of public opinion, particularly as it pertains to Heisman voters as well?
Well, Meggs told me last Friday that he hoped to have a decision in this case on whether or not to pursue criminal charges by the end of this week or sometime next week. Under Florida State Athletics Department's policy, if and only if Jameis Winston is charged with a felony, he would immediately be suspended from the team and be ineligible for competition. I'm a Heisman voter. There's more than 900 of them. We don't get ballots until the end of this month. I think they're due the Monday or Tuesday after the final Saturday of the regular season. So I think if Meggs stays on schedule with what he told me on Friday, voters should know all the information surrounding this case and then be able to make an educated decision. I think at this point, guys, it's unfair to say you're not going to vote for Jameis Winston in the Heisman Trophy race because we don't know all the facts. We've seen that pass with Cam Newton and some other guys, but certainly only if he faces criminal charges, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for him to win the award.
So, Mark, not to put you on the spot, but you have been all over this case from the start. So from what you know now, and the fact that she, the alleged victim, has said she will not pursue this, what's your educated guess on whether charges will be brought?
Don't know, Skip, and I'm hesitant to say whether or not charges will be brought. Again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. She doesn't have to be willing to cooperate with the state attorneys to file charges. And again, I don't know if she has changed her mind and is now wanting to pursue charges. That's another big. We know that she is being legally represented by a family member who's been in touch with the police department. I asked Willie Meggs last night if he had spoken to the victim, and he said they were trying to arrange an interview. So that's where they are with that.
ESPN college football reporter Mark Schlabach, thank you so much for joining us and providing your insight. We really needed that. Welcome back to First Take. We are going to do a revisit, gentlemen. ESPN college football reporter Mark Schlabach said a decision to file charges or not file charges in the Jameis Winston case should be made within the next 2 weeks. Stephen A., after hearing him, what is your take on this?
I'm concerned. And I'm concerned because the woman in question, the alleged victim, essentially elected not to pursue the matter, not to press charges. And apparently in the state of Florida, you don't need her in order to continue to go after Jameis Winston. So at the very least, what we're hearing is that the state attorney is still trying to decide whether or not charges are going to be pursued, which means that Jameis Winston is not out of the woods.
Nope.
That's the reality of the situation. You listen to Mark Schlabach, that's what it comes down to. Jameis Winston is not out of the woods. Doesn't mean he's guilty. Doesn't mean any of that. But it does mean that his name will be, disseminated throughout the nation, because...
It's being totally clear.
He's being, I mean, it's like, this is what's going on here. And, obviously, they're talking about here how, this is almost a year later. One of the things that stands out in my mind, a woman by the name, she's the city manager, Anita Favors Thompson.
Yep.
She is overseeing the police department because the police chief resigned because the Tallahassee Police Department had their issues, according to numerous reports. Mm-hmm. Okay, go look online and find out about that stuff. But in the end, she's saying here that they anticipated national news media interest. All right, she had emailed the information to the Tallahassee mayor and the city commissioners on November 12th, and that's why the state attorney ultimately got involved. My point is, how come they didn't get that information earlier? And so when you have those things in question, to me, it's not just about Jameis Winston. It's about the local police department. And if it's about the local police department, what role does the university have, if any, in all of this? These are the kind of things that create scandals and controversy, okay? Because you start connecting dots. We're at the state attorney, and he's trying to decide what to do. But it was brought to the state attorney after the email was sent to the mayor of the city, okay, and the city commissioners. All right, well, we're saying, well, this happened last December. Well, who had it then? Who had this information, whatever information?
Wow.
It was supposedly the Tallahassee Police Department. They tried to look into it or whatever the case may be. Supposedly she elected not to pursue the matter further. The point is, when you have that discrepancy in time, in the eyes of the court of public opinion, you start looking as to what was the delay all about. And that brings into question the police department, which ultimately brings into question the connection to the university, which is big time, which, by the way, is in pursuit of a national title. And so anytime you have that kind of stuff going on, that's where it becomes a bit problematic, because now we're not just looking at Jameis Winston. We're looking at a whole bunch of other people.
So where are you on this now?
I have no clue.
I am right there with you.
I have no clue.
Jameis Winston, to me, could be 1,000% innocent. He could be.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say it again, as I said to Mark Schlabach, I have now gone from thinking he was maybe marginally, distantly involved in this some crazy way, to thinking, wait a minute, he must have been, in her eyes, far more involved than we were initially led to believe. Because Mark did say, just now in this interview, he said, do not read too much into the alleged victim's early testimony that she thought her assailant was between 5'9" and 5'11", which you leaped upon the first day and said, aha, Jameis is listed at 6'4". He's disqualified. He's out. So, and I was led down that path also, thinking, well, man, that must mean, did he observe this somehow or what? We had no idea. Well, now I'm back to thinking, gee, she must have thought he was far more involved than we initially thought.
Mark Schlabach also said it took her a month to identify him. That doesn't, I mean, there's just so many questions.
The initial statement also said she had been drinking. That doesn't mean she didn't get molested. But
well, again, the key thing is, and in the interest, just make sure we're not convicting anybody. Let's make sure we say that. We don't know the facts. But these are the kind of things that create questions. And when you have a show like this, whether it's talk radio, it's numerous debate shows, whatever the case may be, let me remind folks, even though it I mean, when you consider what transpired at Penn State with Sandusky and all of that other stuff, how heinous that was, this doesn't seem to compare by any stretch. But let's keep something in mind here. When we looked at Penn State, you had people like myself and many others taking an incredibly strong position, not because of Sandusky, but because of the football program, what people associated with it knew or allegedly knew, whether it was Joe Paterno, whether it was the business administration department, whether it's the VP, people that were indicted, arrested, whatever the case may be. We looked at all of those things associated with Penn State University and wondered, people like myself, I'm not talking about you because I know what your position was, it was the actions of one man, but people like myself that looked at the university and their complicity in it all. It was all in the interest, in people like my opinion, to protect the name of the football program. And so what we're saying is, when you're talking about that kind of stuff, nothing is off limits, because in the end, it's not about a sport. In the end, it's not about a game. It's about millions upon millions of dollars. And when it comes to something of that magnitude, where there's money to be made by everybody, that raises eyebrows and raises antennas because it elevates suspicion. And that is the reason you talk about stuff like this, just so we're clear.
More First Take after the break. Kobe Bryant looks as if he's ready to come back sooner rather than later. On Tuesday, he was at practice at full speed in 5-on-5 drills for the first time since rupturing his Achilles in April. Kobe's teammates said he looked better than expected, and while Kobe said he felt great, he also admitted he could see himself coming back by the end of the month.
Can you see yourself playing this month? I saw myself playing today. So. Yeah, I can.
All right. NBA analyst Tim Legler joins the desk. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
Good to have you. So what you see and hear, when do you expect Kobe to return?
Not by the end of the month. I mean, to me, it's a great sign, that clip that we saw of him working out.
Yeah.
And we say he's back full speed, but that was about 60% speed of what it's going to require to play in an NBA game, particularly the attention that he draws, what defenses do against him. End of the month would be incredibly optimistic. But the fact that he's even doing what he's doing now, 7 months after tearing his Achilles, is incredible to me. Because the players that I've seen deal with this injury, and even people just in a normal walk of life that I've known deal with this injury, to be back in 7 months, even working out to the degree he was yesterday, is incredible. But for him to really be effective the way he wants to play, it's going to take more than the end of the month. I said all along, Christmas would be optimistic. If he came back mid-January, that would still be great. To say end of November, December 1, just based on a little bit of a 5-on-5 half-court workout, I think that's a real stretch.
Are you leaning towards him not coming back at all this year?
No, not at all. Kobe Bryant's going to play this year. There's no question he's going to play, and I knew all along he would play. The thing with Kobe Bryant, and he did a very revealing interview about this a couple years ago, where he said, I'm not one of these guys who's going to stick around at the end of my career and average 18 points a game. That was with you. I always took that as a direct shot at Michael Jordan playing for the Wizards. That's kind of how I interpreted that comment. That's who Kobe Bryant is. He doesn't want to be another guy or a decent player. He wants to be great all the time. It's going to take a lot longer than a couple of weeks from working out a little bit with your team before you can be that guy. Now, having said that, the Lakers' leading scorers averaging 13 points a game. So Kobe can probably play on one Achilles and average 15 and be the leading scorer for this team. But is that all he wants to be? Or does he want to be more than that? Then I think it's, for me, Christmas would be the most realistic time frame for him to really have an impact on the game.
And by the way, Stephen A. Smith has said from the start he will return on December 20th.
He called
I believe that's when it's going to be, but I think he's aiming for December 1st. I don't think he'll be able to pull it off. I don't think it would be wise. Matter of fact, I'd advise against it, but he don't care what I think. I ain't a doctor, but I think Christmas Day would be ideal. I think he'll be ready to roll. And you're absolutely right. Kobe Bryant is not coming back to average 18, 19 again. As a matter of fact, his exact words to me is, you think I'm going to do that? Hell no. Those were his exact words. And he has maintained that position. Kobe Bryant does not want to be just another player. He's not going to tolerate it. His pride is elevated beyond comprehension, man. He's one of those dudes that refuses to give other folks the license to say he's average. He will walk away from the game before he allows that to happen. And he clearly doesn't believe that that's going to be the case. And so when you look at it and you look at some of the pieces that they have in place, Yes, the Lakers are 2 games below 500. They're 5-7. They're not out of the mix. You see what I'm saying? You look at the Jordan Hill with the Pau Gasol, with the Chris Kaman. You look at the Nick Young, some of the young pieces that they have. Well, if you've got Kobe doing what he does with those other pieces in place in terms of the big boys, then you're just talking about using the other dudes for energy, but you use him to close. Yeah, Kobe can see himself doing that. Yeah. He can see himself doing that while averaging about 23 to 25 a game. So I look at it from the standpoint that I anticipate still that it's possible that he'll come back earlier. But to me, Christmas will be ideal unless he wants to come back earlier so he can explode on Christmas. You see what I'm saying? And use that the first couple of weeks leading into it as his personal training camp. Yeah. Unless that's the case, I still see Christmas.
While I agree with Tim Legler, this is the worst injury any athlete can ever suffer. It is always the most inexplicable injury because it happens how? You're just sort of moving by yourself and it just snaps. All that said, I have such supreme regard for Kobe Bryant and his supreme regard for his conditioning and his body. Silly me, I thought he would make it back for the first game. Again, we have seen what Adrian Peterson did in football with the knee reconstruction. We have seen what RG3 did, maybe to a fault, all in for week 1. And at least he did play. He should have played in the preseason. I stand by that. But he did play the opener, and maybe it was premature. I just thought Kobe would be on a mission at age 36 to show the world I can be back for week 1. I agree with you, Tim. That would have been miraculous to pull that off. Maybe he found out this is the one thing even Kobe Bryant can't beat. But I'm going to say this again because Kobe brought it up on The View. The donut line, did you see?
Yes.
Okay, I got to bring it up because it shakes me up when I hear Kobe Bryant talk about this. All I could do for 6 months was sit around and eat donuts. You don't have to eat donuts for 6 months.
You're overreacting.
I'm not. No, because it's Kobe Bean Bryant. That's why I'm not. And he has put on a few pounds.
No, he did.
Okay, he did. Well, okay.
He looked like he lost them.
He may have lost some. He may be losing. Yep. But why would you do that?
He's got more to go.
Okay, I agree.
Yeah.
Why would you do that to your body? I'm just going to throw this out. Last year, Tim Duncan had what I thought was his best ever all-around season. Now, he couldn't do some of the things he used to do. He was 36 last year. He made first-team All-NBA last year because what was the number one thing he did? He lost 25 pounds before the season. He was just getting flat-out heavy. And he's now lithe. He's now agile again. And he's lost even more this year at age 37. Kobe Bean Bryant is 36 years of age. You just can't tempt fate by putting on pounds. You know how this happens. So I'm just saying I'm slightly disappointed that he wouldn't just be fiercely committed to coming back sleeker than ever. I don't know. That's just me because you can still do a lot of things. You can go in the gym all you want with your Achilles. You can do all kinds of upper body things. You can do some other cardio things without using your leg. You can.
I think you're sleeping on Kobe. I think Kobe's the kind of guy that you truly, truly, truly have to measure what you're seeing when you see him. Meaning, when he steps out on the court, what are you looking at when he says, I'm back? You can't judge him before then because the man has spent an entire career taking care of himself. He knows what he's doing. And so what happens is, I know people like yourself with your Diet Mountain Dew is your only vice in the world.
It is.
You understand what I'm saying? Or Tim Legler, Mr. Sex Symbol himself and all of this other. That's what his aspiration was. I used to work with him. I know this man. Okay? I'm trying to tell you, I know him.
I did not know
that. I haven't heard that expression.
Come on now. His wife's beautiful. You understand?
I agree.
She's got a good man, but you know what I'm saying, man. Here's the deal. I'm just telling you, I was the dude with the crunchberries. I was the dude with the dog. I know. I understand. Listen, man, it's hard, okay? It's hard to just veer away from that stuff when you don't have anything. Wait a minute. Yeah. I don't get to train. I don't have to do anything for months. I mean, if ever there was an excuse to eat some donuts and some cereal and all of that stuff, it would be that.
Almost as if he
would be that. So let's be light on them and relax and wait.
No, you know when the excuse is? When he quits. When he finally says, I can't do this anymore.
See, I kind of agree with both of you from this standpoint. It's probably the first time in Kobe Bryant's entire life where he knew he couldn't. He wasn't playing anytime soon.
Right.
And he indulged in some things that he probably normally would. But I also agree with Skip in that weight gain at that age for a basketball player is difficult for your body to react to. So maybe it's not the Achilles, but maybe if he plays a little bit heavier in the beginning when he first comes back, you know, maybe it's his knee, and now he's got swelling in his knee. Maybe it's his ankles, because the extra weight on your joints could be a problem.
Tim,
he's got more to lose.
He doesn't look like he lost the weight to you.
He lost some of it.
Like
the first clip, when I saw the first clip of him jogging before a game a couple of weeks ago, I said to myself, wow. Because, I mean, he got a little bit of jiggle going.
Oh, you saw? Okay.
Then yesterday, he looked better than that.
Okay.
Now, he still is probably, if you ask Kobe Bryant, I bet he probably still thinks he needs to lose another 7 to 10 pounds.
Yep.
I bet you. Kobe would tell you that himself, how his body feels. One thing I will say, that workout we saw yesterday, that was literally about the pace of a glorified shoot-around.
Yep.
So we have to understand what that was that we saw.
Right.
And Kobe knows that. Offensively, he can temper what he does. He's going to have to react defensively, change ends of the floor, and that's when he has to be ready physically to do. Offensively, you can adjust your game because you know what you can and can't do and figure out a way. And thank God for Kobe Bryant. He's got some of the best fundamentals this league has ever seen. Best footwork for a guard, maybe in the history of the game.
Yep.
So he'll find other ways to score, but athletically, he's going to be a different player when he comes back.
All right, Legs, thank you. I didn't know you were a sex symbol. This is interesting.
Well, I thought you were going to say, obviously, you are a sex symbol.
Worked in the gym, take care of himself, take care of his body. He was fixated on that stuff, still is.
Ah, okay.
That's all I mean by that. It's all love. It's a compliment.
It's a compliment.
And I appreciate it coming from you, my man.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The Miami Heat have won the 2013 NBA title.
Major League Baseball.
The Boston Red Sox have won the World Series.
The Bowl Championship Series.
The tide has risen again, the third time in 4 years.
You're home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
I felt when I was in Dallas, it was a very micromanaged atmosphere. Everything was heightened. Everything was very tight. I didn't feel the relationship and the bonding between players and coaches. I think that's the risk that you get, you know, and everybody wonders, you know, why Dallas can't finish, why Dallas isn't completing everything they need to. It's not. I mean, the players are great. The players are tremendous. The coaches are some of the best at their in the business. You know, you just need a cohesion there that allows players and coaches to really execute and do their job, and you know, and it's not something hanging over their head.
10-year veteran Will Allen played 5 games with the Cowboys before being released, and he's now back with the Steelers. He also played for Tampa Bay, so it's safe to say he's been in a few locker rooms. But for him to comment on the atmosphere, the Cowboy atmosphere, we're putting him on the hook, and we want to know, what is he really saying? Stephen A., question for you.
Well, what he's saying is that Jerry Jones is in the way. That's what he's saying. He said, I got an owner, you understand, that just doesn't get it, doesn't know how to move out of the way. Think about it. He was complimentary of the players. He was complimentary of the coaches. But he said that, you know what, you can't get you can't get things on the same page because they're being micromanaged. Who has the power to micromanage? There's only one person within the Cowboys organization, and that is Jerry Jones. Now, obviously, you can say Stephen Jones, too, but he doesn't seem to strike me as that type of dude. According to you, he's incredibly knowledgeable about football. He's not necessarily a micromanager, and not only that, he doesn't mind being in the background because his daddy's in the foreground. So there's only one other person that has the power to micromanage, and that would be Jerry Jones, the hype machine extraordinaire. That's what he is. He gets all the hype. He brings attention to Cowboy Nation, to the Cowboys, America's team, and all of this other stuff, despite the walking piece of mediocrity that they have continued to be throughout the years.
Every time you use mediocre, you got to change your slogan. They're not mediocre anymore.
Well, listen, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be very nice. I'm not going to be accused of being cruel. I want to be a nice guy. And that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say mediocre. And in the end, that's what it comes down to when you're talking about the Dallas Cowboys. They are who they are.
I think you're being cruel to Jerry Jones right now.
Stop.
You know why?
Stop it.
I have read and reread these quotes. I have now heard them in audio. I don't hear Jerry Jones between the lines here. He did not bring up Jerry Jones. I don't know how to define micromanage. And God knows I have been critical of Jerry Jones lately. Scathing column that I wrote for ESPN.com and again on the show.
You were not very nice.
I wasn't. I agree.
But very accurate.
But again, I was not nice, accurate, until I look at these quotes. I don't think they were aimed at Jerry Jones. So I ran into the great Bill Polian in the hall before the show.
Okay.
He is the co-host of said show on which Will Allen spoke. What is it, a Sirius station? Yeah. I said, did you take away that was a shot at Jerry? And he said, in no way did I think it was a shot at Jerry Jones. Now, again, this is just Bill's take as he heard it live. He thought that Will Allen, in very measured, mature, perspective tones, was trying to explain the difference between a corporate Dallas Cowboy atmosphere and a very family atmosphere that's fostered by Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. That it's like a family feel. Everybody's in it together. The coaches love the players who love the coaches who are in concert with the front office. Now, again, there's been some Haley issues with Ben, but still, in general, engendered by Mike Tomlin from the top, there's a feel-good atmosphere in the Pittsburgh locker room as opposed to more of a cold atmosphere, a distance between coaches and players in the Dallas locker room. I can't see Jerry Jones here. I would try. I'd be happy to if I could see it. I just don't. If you can show it to me, how does Jerry micromanage? I don't know.
Well, I find I'm laughing, I must admit, because we know I profoundly respect Bill Polian as well. And y'all can take that position if y'all want to. Y'all are entitled. But the Dallas Cowboys being a corporate atmosphere, well, who's responsible for that?
Okay.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
You can argue.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, but
who's the man responsible for that?
Remember, the atmosphere was the very same corporate atmosphere when they won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years.
No, it was not, because according to you, of course, first of all, don't act, listen, you are there covering that team all the time. Now you are here, okay? So let's be clear about that. The atmosphere, you can't say that it's not different. Jimmy Johnson was there. Yeah. Jimmy Johnson had say. Jimmy Johnson would not be bullied by Jerry Jones. Jimmy Johnson is going to do what Jimmy Johnson believed unless he absolutely couldn't because Jerry Jones is cutting the check. The point that I'm trying to make is that there was no corporate. Jimmy Johnson's all about football. He might put on his suits. He might have his hair the way that it is, and I don't know how he does it. You understand what I'm saying? All of this other stuff going on with him. But Jimmy Johnson is a football man, football personified. There is no environment that Jimmy Johnson presides over that's going to be more corporate than football. Stop it. So the point is, if it is corporate, you can only be talking about one man because who's more corporate than Jerry Jones?
Okay.
Who?
I'm with you. In the locker rooms I covered in the early 90s, the great Cowboy locker rooms, there was fear in those locker rooms because
of Jerry.
They tiptoed because of Jimmy. Because of Jimmy.
Because of Jimmy. Because of Jimmy is what I'm saying.
Scared to death. Right. Psycho Jimmy. When is he going to go over the edge and tear everybody a new one in the locker room because he is capable? You see him on Fox being the nice, charming guy. Nope, sorry.
The playmaker was there too. Emmitt Smith, the little pit bull that he is, he was there too. You had Charles Haley and those boys who ultimately came on board. You had cats there before them. These dudes were Rough Riders. The fact of the matter is that's not the case. You've got a guy in Jerry Jones that looks for marketability just as much as he looks for talent. Who can I market? Who can I help to extend this Cowboy brand? There's only one man responsible for that. Let's stop acting like we don't know. Of course it's Jerry. And Will Allen is smart enough because, again, Jerry Jones is not only a great businessman, but by all accounts, a relatively nice man. And so the combination of those two, you don't want to be a player departing, speaking about him the way you've got former players speaking about this dude in Miami as the GM. You don't want that going on. Jerry Jones is viewed differently. You love him. You respect him. He never hesitates to cut the check. You appreciate all of those things and the attention that you get being a part of Cowboys lore. But in the end, when you talk about the corporate entity that is the Dallas Cowboys, there is one man and one man only responsible for that, and that is Jerry Jones. And that's who Will Allen was speaking to, regardless of what you and Bill Polian say. There's no question in my mind about that.
He says, I didn't feel the relationship and bonding between players and coaches. Is that Jerry's fault?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that.
Yes. You know why? Because they're preoccupied with worrying about Jerry, which is why they don't cultivate the relationship with the players that they should have. If you were allowed to just sit there and concentrate on that locker room without having to be worried about what upstairs is thinking, then it would facilitate a better relationship between the players and the coaches. But because you got to worry about that, because Jerry Jones has always got his own watchful eye. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know how anybody can sit there and not see this. It's obvious. It's obvious. This has Jerry Jones.
Jerry Jones is the nicest owner in pro football.
So?
He is player friendly. He is slapping everybody on the back.
Hold it.
So you think they're afraid of Jerry Jones?
No.
Just the opposite.
That does not mean that's micromanaging.
I don't know what micromanaging means.
That means that you're involved in everything. You don't know how to keep your nose out of certain business.
Oh, okay.
That's what it means.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you're evil. It doesn't mean that you're rife with iniquities and you're trying to be vicious and all of this other stuff. It means that you don't know how to sit there and stay and keep your nose out of certain business.
Could it also mean, bottom line, that Will Allen got signed in the offseason by Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, and they cut him after 5 games?
That's right.
Could that be what it means? There's some sour grapes here?
Could be. I doubt it, though, because I think the position that he displayed is consistent with what I've been thinking and what I believe about the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones. And their record shows it.
I agree with your big picture. I don't agree with your little picture.
Okay.
21 and 21. Yeah. Moving on.
Well, the
big
little
game
pictures made you
in
come to the big
Foxborough
picture.
on Sunday. 2 legends in Tom Brady and Peyton Manning meet for the 14th time in their careers.
Wow.
The Patriots have a tough turnaround and need to rebound after that controversial loss to the Panthers on Monday night. I think you remember that, Skip Bayless. So for the first time since 2005, New England will be home underdogs. Now, that is a tough question, and I want to ask it to Stephen A. Do you think that the Patriots will be able to rebound? And by rebound, I say win.
Yes. And I remember predicting earlier this year that the Patriots would win this game because Denver was coming to Foxborough. I believe that the Patriots will win this game, and the fact that they lost Monday night, I'm even more adamant that they're going to win this game on Sunday night against the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos, in my opinion, will suffer their second and third losses of the season because they're going to lose to New England and then Kansas City a week later. That's
you
what
heard it here first.
That's what I'm thinking. That doesn't mean they're not going to get the number 1 seed because I still think they're going to end up going 13-3. But still in all, I do see that happening. The New England Patriots, listen, Tom Brady is elite. Bill Belichick is elite. You see, Gronkowski is big time. We know this. I don't know about the status of Amendola and these boys, Ridley and Blount and those guys. Give the ball. Let them run the football a little bit more. I think they've got playmakers on defense. They'll bend but not necessarily break, even though Ted Ginn Jr. and his touchdown from 25 yards on Monday night certainly didn't help New England's secondary look any good. But I just believe that when their backs are against the wall, this is when they are at their best. And that's what I see when I see the New England Patriots right now. I think they will respond. I think they beat Peyton Manning in Denver on Sunday night.
In Foxborough.
Yes.
You have no idea how much I hope you're right about this, because I don't want to show my cards too early, and I reserve judgment here and the opportunity to reshuffle my deck by Friday, depending on what I hear.
Okay.
But I thought, silly me, I thought New England at home would be a 4 or 5 point underdog, and it's only 2.5. And I'm like, thank you, God, for that. Because Aqib Talib, as I told you yesterday, he watched Cam's final victorious touchdown drive from the sideline because his hip had flared up again. This is bad news, man. You cannot lose a Will Fork, your best defensive lineman, and a Gerard Mayo, your best linebacker, and an Aqib Talib, your best corner, and get away with it against the master surgeon that is Peyton Manning, who's playing at as high a level as I've ever seen him play at in his career. He was surgical the other night. You got to admit, that was beautiful to watch. That was a masterpiece against the number 1 ranked defense in Kansas City on Monday Night Football. Sunday Night Football. So now, you know Alfonso Dennard. He might be the second best cornerback. He is out, man. He is gone for the next few games with a knee injury. After a while, you just can't keep losing this kind of player. You can't expect Tom Brady, even though he does have his weapons back, and he will score some points against Denver's defense. Can he score more than Peyton can against his defense? I just don't. Right now, I can't make the case. Because, okay, Raheem Moore, They lost him the other night. Their safety. Now he was, do not invite him in Denver in the offseason because he gave up the Hail Flacco that
Ravens,
lost the playoff game. But still, he's the starting safety. So they signed Michael Huff, who got cut by the Ravens, but he was early, what was he, the 7th pick in the draft in 06. Right. So will he be able to ease into that role? I don't know. I don't think he's going to start in this game. But still, is that enough to even the playing field? I can't see it because right now, New England's defense isn't very good. It's just not. Yeah. And it's not good enough to face this guy.
We'll see.
Okay, I hope you're right.
We will see Broncos at Patriots Sunday night, 8:30 Eastern. Stephen A's picking it. He's sticking with it early.
I picked Indianapolis Colts to beat them.
All right, and you're just
no one else did.
And by the way, you made the point earlier that, hey, what happened, if they did get robbed, you think it will further motivate them from here on.
Fellas, starting 5 for the Indiana Pacers, head coach. It's very, very rare that you see the starting unit of a team on the NBA level interviewed together. This is obviously something you guys wanted to do together. Paul, I'll start with you.
Well, it's togetherness, environment here. We all pull for one another when we're on the floor, when we're off the floor. I've never felt, so a part of a team from, coaching, our trainers, just a whole, organization where everybody's on the same page. So it's a special feeling here.
Hey, Bayless, where did you watch that interview? Last night?
Where did I watch it?
Were you at home?
I was actually this morning, very early. I was with him at dinner.
Oh, yeah, you guys
I think it only aired on the late Sports Center.
It aired on the late Sports, 11 o'clock Sports Center for the first time, then all day today, and part 2 comes on at 6 o'clock tonight.
I saw it on the treadmill this morning
all right.
at 5:30 something.
While you were on the treadmill, what were your thoughts?
Stephen A. Smith, my take is that I was taken by the fact that Paul George is the anti-RG3. Here we have a Paul George on the verge of superstardom, and he refused to go solo with the great Stephen A. Smith, insisting instead that all 4 of the other starters, plus the head coach, sat in 2 rows, 3 and 3, in front of Stephen A. Smith. And I'm going to say it again. This team ultimately this year in the playoffs will go as far as Paul George can take it. But for me, this team's stock goes way up because its potential superstar is all about we instead of me.
Yeah.
Well, actually, he wanted the 4 starters. I wanted Fogel there, too. And I was glad that Coach agreed to do it because what you have to take into consideration is it's a very, very sensitive situation going on in Indiana. They're a first-class organization. You had Donnie Walsh there for years. Then Larry Bird took over. Then Donnie Walsh came back when Bird took his year hiatus due to health reasons, and now he's back presiding over the organization, and Donnie Walsh still obviously contributes. But it's a first-class organization that, to be quite honest with you, didn't deserve the heat that they took nationwide, if not internationally, and especially locally from their fan base because of the brawl at the Palace, and Auburn Hills nicknamed the Malice at the Palace back in 2004. You had that going on with Ron Artest and those boys.
Well, that seems like years and years ago.
But what happened was, let me tell you what happened. In the immediate aftermath of that, obviously the Steven Jacksons, Jermaine O'Neals, and others were suspended. And then ultimately when they came back, they struggled. And then after that, they went through 5 consecutive years of not being in the postseason, not to mention the fact that support had waned for the organization. Attendance was an issue. The support for the organization was an issue because of, it was just the residual effects of everything. And they started losing basketball games and they weren't winning as much. They never nosedived, but they weren't winning basketball games, not really championship contender. So you're Larry Bird, you build this team. It wasn't just about the talent, it was about character. It's about guys that want to come in, that want to play the right way, that aren't about themselves, that are about winning and representing the organization in a first-class manner. This is the goal. Now, you hear every organization say it, but it appears as if they've lucked up and found a bevy of players who literally live by it. You've got a guy like David West. He's the senior citizen of this crew. He's at 33 years of age. The ones I talk about has muscles coming out of his ears. This dude is a blue-collar type worker, works hard, goes after it. Roy Hibbert, you met him. You know how much of a nice guy he is, but at the same time, he goes out there. He loves being the big man. He loves being the big man on campus. But at the same time, he's got to represent them accordingly. You got a guy like Paul George. Remember, Danny Granger, that was his team. That was his crew. Well, Paul George has ascended, so suddenly he's got to be cognizant of being a star while at the same time making sure he doesn't alienate the troops around him, whether it be the starters or a guy like Danny Granger. You got a guy like Lance Stevenson. You understand that, he had somewhat of a checkered past or whatever. He comes out there, he's balling, he's playing lights out. George Hill doesn't even call himself a point guard. He says, I'm just a player that has to play the point guard spot. So you see guys like David West alluded to that all were passed over by various other teams. They got chips on their shoulders, and they only believe that they can pull it off collectively. Yeah. They don't believe that one can do it individually. They believe their only hope is to be stuck together like Velcro.
And West said that in the interview. They play like they got chips on their shoulders because they've been denied in the league. It was really good, Stephen.
It was really good.
Yeah.
I stand by what I said. Ultimately, superstars win in this league.
Yep.
He's going to have to really arrive, Paul George.
I have to throw something at you because you were right about something that you need to know about. I actually got on you about it. I got to sit there and mea culpa here. You talked about LeBron James hitting the shot after George had that dunk and slapping five and all of that stuff. And it's, giving him this impression like he belonged.
He's arrived.
Well, he's arrived. He's arrived. Well, apparently that was true, because that meant a lot to him. That meant a lot to Paul George. Not to mention the fact that, again, you see some of the stuff like him and LeBron communicate in the offseason. LeBron will sit there and give tips on how to stay healthy, protect your body, all of this other stuff. So the kind of things that he does, that he does himself, that he shares with teammates, he also shares with some young stars in this league. The kind of things that you would say Michael Jordan would never do, stuff like that. Well, apparently LeBron is the complete polar opposite. People like George feed off of that. The confidence builds to some degree anyway because of it.
So did LeBron create a monster? That's the question.
Well, we'll find out, because Paul George is coming, and no matter how much he loves LeBron, they are coming for Miami.
Speaking of the Pacers, they play the Knicks tonight on ESPN, as mentioned a minute ago.
I'll be there.
And after having the second best record in the East, the Knicks are off to a 3-7 start, Stephen A. So we ask you this: how much trouble do you think Mike Woodson, the head coach, is in?
Let me say this, Skip Bayless. The New York Knicks will tell you from Dolan on down that Mike Woodson is not in trouble. I am telling you, I do not believe them. And I do not believe them for one reason and one reason only. I do not trust James Dolan. I believe that James Dolan at any given moment could potentially pull the trigger. If you're the New York Knicks, you are now at 3-7. You've got Indiana tonight. I'll be there. It'll be 3-8 in all likelihood. And then you got a road swing that's up. I mean, before long, who knows what their record could be? It could be 4-10. It could be 3-11, 3-12. We just don't know. Mike Woodson does not, I repeat, does not deserve the blame for this. Tyson Chandler's out. Amari Stoudemire is done because of his knees, not because of his heart, not because of his skills, just because of his knees. Raymond Felton and Metta World Peace didn't play last night. Iman Shumpert's head's all over the place because he's continuously a part of trade rumors. And need I remind everybody that J.R. Smith, the reigning sixth man of the year, was suspended for the first 5 games of this season because of, substance use and what have you, and as a violation of the league's drug policy. And as a result, he was out the first 5 games. You knew he was going to be out the first 5 games, so it wasn't a priority in terms of him performing in training camp, preseason, all of this other stuff. So all of that stuff took away from their chemistry. The problem is you have an owner, Mikhail Prokhorov from Brooklyn, who rattled Dolan by talking smack to him. If the Nets were doing better, who knows what would have happened to Mike Woodson already? Because I don't believe that it's fair because of the situation he's under, the level of talent he has available to him. But there's something else that's very conspicuous that's going on. We're hearing Melo talk a lot. And what is Melo saying? I don't know what's wrong with us. The effort and energy isn't there. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe it's our fault. It's not the coaches, but something needs to be done about it. We all know that when you say something like that, the coach is going to get blamed anyway.
Yep.
And as a result of that, if you're Dolan, your eyebrows are also raised because now you have to prioritize doing whatever you can to appease Melo because Melo is approaching impending free agency this July. Now, I'm here to tell you, something could happen, Skip. Things could change.
Yep.
But as of right now, if you ask me and you put my feet to the fire, I'm telling you Melo's gone.
Okay.
It's over. He's leaving the Knicks, and he's probably going to Los Angeles to play with Kobe in his final 2 years, along with that crew in the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm telling you right now, based on what I'm seeing, unless there's a change that takes place with the New York Knicks that we can't see right now, Melo is gone. He's going to Los Angeles.
I do not doubt you for a second. This team is a mess. This team does obviously miss Tyson Chandler. But Stephen A., it all started, and I love Melo. I respect him as a basketball player, as a scorer. But I think he set the wrong tone just before the season started when he said, yeah, I'm paraphrasing, but I'm looking forward to playing the field a little bit after the year. Remember this? I just think on the eve of the season, it sent the wrong message to his teammates who kind of threw up their hands and said, well, I guess we're just playing out the string for Melo here because it comes across like, yeah, he's going to explore and he's probably going to leave. So remember, there was also a report that James Dolan told privately the coaches before the year started, the pieces are in place for us to go win a championship this year. I don't think so. J.R. Smith isn't a shell of what J.R. Smith was last year when he won the Sixth Man Award. Can't seem to find his way. When we got back from dinner last night, I watched the fourth quarter of this game. Man, they look bad. I don't know if it's flat. I don't know if it's no energy. Melo tries to do it all with the basketball in his hands. He's not going to make anybody any better. He got his points in the fourth quarter, and they never were really in the game. At Detroit. Detroit's, from Jamel. They're okay, but the Knicks are still good enough without Tyson Chandler to win that game. There were moments in the fourth I thought, oh, here they come. No, they're not coming because it looks like it's Melo on the floor with four dudes who he's not even hadn't met before. And they're four different guys at all different times. And it just doesn't feel right. Or look, the eye test says this team is in big trouble. And you know what that means ultimately? The coach is going to be in big trouble.
Let me tell you something else I found out while we're here on First Take, because I want to make sure I make it clear right here while I got the platform to do so. If you remember, I brought up the name LeBron James. And I told you that Miami was a priority.
Yep.
Cleveland was a close second. The New York Knicks were a distant third. All right, where LeBron James had given indications it was something he was willing to consider. For what I'm being told, that is out the window. He looks at the New York Knicks as straight garbage right now.
Well, they are.
And he views them in terms of getting rid of Glenn Grunwald not appearing to have the stability. Now, that's not to knock Steve Mills or anything like that. This is his first shot. He was the president of Madison Square Garden. He didn't oversee basketball operations. He oversaw the business side of Madison Square Garden. Now he's the president and GM of the basketball team. But from what I'm being told, because of the quickness with which James Dolan makes the decision that he has made, it gives the impression of instability. And as a result, according to confidants of LeBron James, he ain't thinking about New York now. It's about Miami or Cleveland. Not interested in the New York Knicks, even though that was a distant shot anyway, where you talk about the possibility of him opting out this year or opting in and finishing out his contract following next season and then considering the New York Knicks. All of that appears to be a wash because the way things are discombobulated right now, we don't know if Melo wants to stay. And I'm here to tell you the way things are right now, Melo will leave. Don't doubt it for a second. So there's no incentive for LeBron to want to come here to leave a first-class organization like the Miami Heat. If you're going to do that, it appears as if the only place he's going is back home. If not, he's going to stay in South Beach. But the New York Knicks, because of the way things are looking, especially with its owner being so unpredictable, you got guys out there that don't have trust. Steve Mills has to prove himself because guys are getting to know him. And Allen Houston is a guy that played in this league, very competent basketball mind, but not in a decision-making position to say just yet. So they're unproven, which means the only person you can look at is Dolan, and the players don't trust Dolan. So as a result, a guy like LeBron is like, I don't want any part of this. And right now, it looks as if he has just washed away the thought of ever appearing in New York.
Would one day I like to see LeBron James play 41 games at Madison Square Garden a year? Sure, I would. That'd be great. Really? Be great for the city, great for the franchise you love. Mm-hmm. But not with nobody. You know, this is a wreck.
It's a wreck right now.
I knew it.
It's a wreck right now. But the problem is they're blaming the coach, and the coach ain't the problem.
Grizzlies guard Tony Allen was suspended 1 game for kicking Chris Paul in the face while Paul was driving to the basket. Take a look. Show it again. Looked accidental to me, but we asked the question.
Oh, so now you're weighing
I'm weighing in on it because it looked accidental. He didn't deserve it. Does the punishment fit the crime, Stephen A?
Yes, it does, only because you lifted your leg up and what have you. Not to say that it was intentional for Tony Allen to do that. That's not his style. That's not something he does. Anybody who knows anything about Tony Allen is that if he has a problem with you, he'll wait for you after the game, or practice or whatever, and he'll handle it accordingly. He's not the kind of guy that would do something like that intentionally, especially to somebody like a Chris Paul. And that's why he waited after to apologize to Chris Paul to make sure he said to Chris that it wasn't intentional. It's why Chris Paul adamantly said, I know it wasn't intentional on his part. It's just that initially when you get hit in the face, you're not thinking about that because all your bearings are not there. But Chris Paul knows that about Tony Allen. Now, if it was Zach Randolph doing something like that to Blake Griffin, then I would have questioned the intent. But it's certainly not the case with Tony Allen and a Chris Paul. But still in all, if you're the NBA, you have to send a message. You can't do something like that. Under no circumstances do you lift your leg, trying to block a pass or whatever the case may be. You don't do something like that, and that's what you have to be mindful of.
I'm not sure I'm with you on this one. I think there could have been some, might I say, subliminal motivation on the part of a Tony Allen who plays extremely physical defense, as you know. He'll take it to the edge occasionally. Not that he doesn't respect Chris Paul, but you know and I know there was some bad blood between these teams. And it climaxed in the closeout game of last year's playoffs when the Clippers were eliminated by Memphis. And do you remember what happened at the end of that game when Marc Gasol is just waiting for a free throw to be shot? Can we see that, please? The play where Chris Paul got a running start and just blatantly cheap-shotted Marc Gasol, popped him. It looked like hit him in the stomach. I don't know what he was trying to do.
To the left,
I thought Chris just lost his mind.
Yeah, that happens.
Seeing this?
That happens.
That happens?
Yes.
Get a running start and just run up to a guy who's not looking at you and just pop him in the stomach?
Well, you got guys, Memphis and the Clippers go at it the way that they do.
Okay, I'm saying there's all kinds of bad blood.
Right.
I'm just saying Memphis owed Chris Paul. They owed him for that. I'm sorry, that's out of bounds. I'm not going to give Chris a pass. And we know he has lost.
You mean Chris or Tony Allen?
I'm not going to give Chris Paul a pass for what he did to Marc Gasol.
I got you.
And Chris will lose his temper on occasion all the way back to college. Remember what happened in the ACC tournament against Julius Hodge? Remember when he lost it and just popped him in the midsection?
I'm just telling you, but I'm not debating all of that. I'm just telling you that Tony Allen is not that kind of guy, where it's one thing if it's a body block, a shoulder, an elbow, whatever. He's not going to lift up his leg and kick you in the face. That's not Tony Allen, Skip. That's not something he would do.
I don't know. And I know Tony, and I've
covered him for years.
Respect for his game.
I know.
But it's physical, man. And he will take it to the edge.
Yeah, it's physical, but that's beyond the edge. See, the edge is where something is questionable. The edge is where you're getting physical and you're down there, you're throwing elbows, you're boxing out, you're doing stuff, body blocks. You don't lift your leg up and kick somebody in the face. That's not something Tony Allen would do.
Unless you think you can sell it as, I got caught up in the air and I thought he was going to pass the ball and I accidentally caught him in the jaw with my foot. Listen, there are those players in that Memphis locker room who believe that he was owed that shot in the kisser.
But what happened to Gasol is what you're saying.
Yes, they love Marc Gasol.
Yep. When Chris Paul comes to the hole, that big boy that is Marc Gasol, that big boy that is Zach Randolph, there are plenty of ways to get Chris Paul if you want to get at him without doing something like that. And oh, by the way, if they wanted to get at anybody, it would be Blake Griffin, not Chris Paul.
No, they owed Chris. Chris got at Mark.
That's what you're saying.
And Mark is not built for retaliation. He's not a retaliator. So
Lord, they better be thankful for that because it's a big, strong boy.
I know he is. I know he is. I'm just saying, and I'm reading into it, maybe some subliminal motivation, and I promise you, there were those in the Memphis locker room who were not disappointed that Tony Allen caught Chris Paul in the face.
With a leg.
With a leg.
Come on, Skip. Come on.
I don't know.
I can't argue with you about that. I can't make sense out of the nonsensical. I can't do that. I mean, it makes no sense.
I think it does make sense.
Yeah, of course you do.
Yeah, that's going too far. He intentionally kicked the man in the face. Come on.
No.
Not a punch, but a kick.
Stop that.
Some kickboxing.
That's one way to get even.
Well. Jay-Z had dinner with Mets officials on Monday to talk about Robinson Cano's future and is looking for a $300 million deal. We asked our Twitter followers earlier if you thought Jay-Z could pull that off. 61.6% say no, not happening. Sorry, Jay. Not right now. Stephen A., our followers get it right?
Yes, they did. There's no way on earth that Robinson Cano is getting $300 million. I can't see it.
Dodgers, not at all.
He doesn't. Well, the Dodgers are not going to spend that money. They've spent enough money with doing what they did, and how far did that get them? Right into St. Louis, who spent considerably less and went all the way to the World Series. It ain't happening. The New York Yankees already made that mistake with Alex Rodriguez. They're not interested in giving 10-year deals in excess of $300 million. Now, in fairness to Jay-Z, Rock Nation, and the crew, they are saying that media reports, no truth to it whatsoever. They didn't ask for $300 million. It's media speculation, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to leave it at that. What I will say to you, however, is that Robinson Cano is a stud. Robinson Cano is somebody that's very valuable to the Yankees. Robinson Cano is somebody that the Yankees need to keep if he wants to stay. Any Yankee, I repeat, any Yankee that wants to be a member of the New York Mets, good riddance. We won't miss you. What? Who? What? A Yankee, a member of the New York Yankees, the greatest franchise in sports annals, 27 World Series championships. You're talking about becoming a member of the New York Mets, going from the Bronx to Queens. Ain't nothing wrong with that because Queens is lovely. But you know what I'm saying. Forget the New York Mets. They are not the Yankees. They are not the team that has Derek Jeter. They are not the team that has had 27 World Series championships. These are the New York Yankees we're talking about. And for Robinson Cano or anybody to even entertain the thought of going from the Yankees to the Mets, something is wrong with you. Something is wrong with you. So I'm going to believe that this is simply a ploy. This is something to mess. This is something to mess with people like myself who know what it is about. And I'm going to sit there and just dismiss such rhetoric, such nonsense, and think that it's all been a media creation. I cannot believe that a champion like Robinson Cano, who knows something about greatness, by the way, who deserves about $25 million a year, I might add, would even think about becoming a member of the New York Mets.
Are you daring to criticize the great Jay-Z for shopping his client to the rival Mets? Is that what I just heard?
Well, you can take it that way if you want to.
I did take it that way.
This is the way I'm saying it. Any member of the Yankees, Jay-Z doesn't play for the Yankees, I'm talking about Robinson Cano. Any member of the Yankees who would consider becoming a Met, it's blasphemous. It's blasphemous. And if Jay-Z is talking about putting Robinson Cano on the Mets, that's blasphemous. That's what I'm saying. And nobody should think. Nobody should think this. Not the Mets. You want to go to the Yankees to the Dodgers? That's fine. You want to go from the Yankees to the Angels? That's fine. You want to go from the Yankees to the St. Louis Cardinals or the San Francisco Giants? That's fine. The Yankees to the Mets? Blasphemy.
I think Jay-Z now has a New York Mets state of mind, don't you?
You better watch your mouth.
I think he does.
Jay-Z's a winner.
Jay-Z get the money?
And there's no way.
I'm sorry?
Will Jay-Z get the money? You didn't answer the question.
He ain't getting $300 million for Robinson.
He's 31 years old.
Listen. Robinson Cano, whatever aspirations he had for the $300 million were ruined by Alex Rodriguez and Albert Pujols. Even though Albert Pujols was at 242.
Right.
The bottom line is this. Those 10-year deals, nobody's having it anymore.
Not anymore.
No.
Well said. No mas. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our final take. Our rapid-fire Q&A with the fellas. Up first, Lamar Odom is working out in Rhode Island, preparing for an NBA comeback. Stephen A., what's your chance on Odom?
I'm wishing him luck. I'm hoping that he cleans himself up. I know that if he does, the Clippers and the Lakers will both give him a look because he's got a lot of people that care about him in both organizations. And like I told you, one of the nicest human beings you will ever encounter.
Sure.
He's got a lot of problems, didn't have the support base that you could have, but he's a great guy, and if you wish it for anybody, you wish it for him. But again, when it comes to addictions, you can never assume what somebody's going to do.
I agree, but it's great that he got out of L.A. And went to find one of the top trainers in Rhode Island to start over.
That's right. Yeah.
The Heat beat the Hawks last night, but Dwayne Wade did not play. Concerning for the Heat, Stephen A? I
think they should be a bit concerned. He's getting better. I'm hearing that he's about 70-75%, but at the same time, obviously it's not just the knees, the hips. A lot of stuff went awry. I know he was working out with Tim Grover, but didn't give Tim Grover as much time as Tim Grover should have had, from what I understand. And I didn't hear that from Tim, but I got to tell you, I'm just looking at him right now. This is a very big deal because Dwayne Wade healthy spells championship because he's a superstar when he's healthy.
I agree with that.
When he's not healthy, puts more of a challenge on LeBron James, who's entering a year where he can opt out of his contract. Keep that in mind.
Okay, but I'm told that the plan all along was to sit the first games of these back-to-backs early in the year for precautionary reasons, and Tim Grover will continue to work with Dwayne Wade.
Well, I'm still hearing that it's coming along, but the knee is still hurting. And if you're Pat Riley, you can't be happy about that.
Tim Grover can't fix the knee if it's really a problem.
And speaking of D. Wade, he sold a sitcom to Fox based on his life as an NBA star and a single father to 2 boys. Not necessarily single because he has a girlfriend. Stephen A., your reaction?
Well, I like the last part that you said, because when Gabrielle Union is your woman, you certainly can't be calling yourself single.
This is true.
I definitely agree with that. How you doing, girl? Anyway, to move further, when we talk about this sitcom, I'm very happy for him because he's thinking about life beyond basketball, which is a beautiful thing, and he's got aspirations along these lines, and I think it's going to work well for him. The only thing that I would caution is you're playing for Pat Riley. The sitcoms, the ties, the suits, and everything. He's probably going to have his own clothing line. Pat Riley is the type of dude where you better make sure you're healthy. Because if you're not, and you got all of this stuff going on, that just more attitude coming your way.
I agree.
Not pleasant.
You do not want to act like you're semi-retired now.
Yes.
He's still got a lot of work to do and greatness ahead.
Yes. Okay, before the Rockets went over the Celtics, Dwight Howard was just being playful D12. You see him there, dancing, moving, doing what he do. Good sign or bad sign, Skip Bayless?
It's just a Dwight sign. It's just Dwight being Dwight. This is what a lot of people in Los Angeles did not love. I wish Dwight were a little more serious about basketball because the people who pay to watch him take the game extremely seriously, as Laker Nation did. And I think people in Houston will learn not to love that kind of clowning around in pregame intros.
Well, they'll learn to dislike it if he's losing, not if he's winning. They'll learn to dislike it if he's ineffective, not effective. If Dwight Howard is as much as you and I, because I don't necessarily like it that much, but if Dwight Howard is saying that's when he's at his best, when he's happy and he's having a good time, then we can't knock that. The question is that we can't see him do that and then go out and can't score against Andrea Bargnani. You need to be able to dominate him after doing something like that. That's the only thing.
He didn't score much last night against the Celtics, but
then after, it was a block. It was a block.
Fight before the fight, Manny Pacquiao's trainer Freddie Roach was kicked in the stomach by Brandon Rios' coach during a scuffle over gym time. You see them getting into it. What's your reaction to that, Skip Bayless? It's serious.
That's kind of a low blow to kick a guy who has Parkinson's and then make fun of that. And again, I'm not sure who started the fracas, but I think it was for real. It wasn't pre-fight hype.
Well, the guy that I saw kick him is the guy that was working with him on previous fights. They actually worked together. That individual that I just saw give that kick. But the man has Parkinson's. I understand he gets all riled up and everything, but the man has Parkinson's, and to do that, you're lucky he didn't file charges against you. Come on now.
And he still could. There's still time for that. Yeah, it's ridiculous. The show is over. We're done. See you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern on 2. Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can catch First Take Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on ESPN2.